So, what do you think free speech is?
What do I think free speech is? Free speech, as it's termed, is a God-given right to express what is right. People have a right to agency that's been given to them, but there are rights where someone can speak, where they should be able to speak, and everyone has a right to speak it. But when our rights to speech inflict on other people's rights, where it takes away choice or agency of somebody else, then our free speech is limited and should be restrained. And it's no longer free speech, then it becomes oppression.
Yeah. So, who has rights to free speech?
Everyone has rights to free speech.
Can
Everyone
you-
has the right to say what they're going to say. They may not be correct, because everybody can't be correct if there's differing opinions, but everybody has the right.
So then the next question I have is, should free speech be limited by anything? Like religion, nationality, gender?
It shouldn't be
Beliefs.
it should not be limited by an organization or culture that somebody belongs to. No, because agency is given to us to speak, agency to do and to think and to say and act and behave is given to us by God, not by man. So those things are not parameters or blockades to say this person or this group of people cannot speak, but there are limits as to what people can say. Again, once our free speech, as it's termed, gets involved in trampling on somebody else's rights, then yes, there is a limit.
Okay. So, are there different types of free speech, and what would they be?
Different types of free speech. Interesting question. I don't believe so, but I believe the parameters of where our agency starts inflicting on somebody else is important. That's our limits.
So, an example that we've used in class a lot is we had a discussion about there is a guy who has a shirt that has like some crude language on it. It can be offensive to other people. Would telling him to not wear that shirt be violating his free speech?
Telling him, the act of telling him is not violating his free speech. No, because you haven't taken away anything from him. You've asked him not to wear it, but you haven't taken anything from him. He still has his agency. He still has his ability to speak. Disagreeing with what somebody else says is not taking away their agency, is not taking away their ability. It's just disagreement. And people disagree about things every day. Whether they're passionate or not about them is a different story, but it still doesn't take away their ability to speak. What they wear, what they speak, how they act, what they have on, how fast they drive, what they drive, all the different things that we do as human beings, people can term, if they so choose, as free speech, as a way of communicating. But it really begins to push the limits of what the actual intent was for. But saying I don't like what you're wearing or it's offensive to me doesn't take away somebody's free speech. Limiting someone's ability to do that can be an infringement on somebody's free speech. But what actually gets people to change, to do the thing that is good for the community, when people are able to act, say what they want to say, do what they want to do, and when they want to do that and actually build the community, then they intentionally limit their own speech or communication or expression. But when they're compelled to do so, it all depends on the circumstance. If someone was in my home and I asked them not to behave a certain way or wear a certain thing in my home, that is my right because it's my home. If it's the community at large, what is generally bad for the community we ask people not to do because it's morally hurts the people. And then people get to argue about what are morals and if they're important or not. But in reality they are, because they're eternal laws.
Okay, sweet. Two more questions. Should minors be treated with the same free speech as adults? Even though they're minors, do they still have the same rights to free speech?
Still have the same rights on an eternal scale, yes, because we're human beings. But that doesn't mean they have the wisdom to say the right thing or do the right thing. Now, that being said, a lot of adults don't have the wisdom to say or do the right thing as well, but they have more life experience and generally know better. Hopefully we make the right choices. Of course, our prisons are full of people who don't make the right choices.
That is true.
But the same agency is there for minors or for adults.
Okay. And the last question is, why do you think free speech is so important? Why would the founding fathers put something in the Constitution that says everyone has a right to free speech?
Because at the moment that a God-given right is taken from us, and the wishes of man are put over us in place of a God-given right, then there is oppression that should not, under any circumstances, be taken from man, because it wasn't man's to give or to take. So that's the beginning of a much larger subject.
Thank you.